stay to myself.
A significant challenge facing the Filipino American community is the lack of recognition for our contributions to American society. Even from my own experience, I never learned anything about being Filipino in America. So, with that in mind, I designed an education to application approach. My thought process was that knowledge is meant to be shared. Raising awareness about overlooked communities is a powerful catalyst for change. We spent the next 15 weeks following a curriculum that began with 6 weeks education, followed by 7 weeks of application. During the first 6 weeks, we learned about important Filipino American events such as the I Hotel, Watsonville riots, and Delano grape strikes.
Fasha here, currently making the education plan for the trip and the weekly meetings, and decided to make a video before I announced to the rest of the team about this video idea. And just to give you a little insight on how it feels to be Filipino American, I am literally researching my own history that I was never taught for the weekly meetings. So I have the topics right here.
After coming back from winter break, we then learned about resources for Asian Americans on campus, like ARROW, the Asian American Resource Office, Asian American Studies, and UMB's Anna Peasy grant. We also met with Mary Talusan in February, who is the author of Filipinos in Greater Boston. She helped us learn more about the Phil-Am community on the East Coast. And finally, leading up to our trip, we met with John Ray over in the Bay Area to learn more about PEP.
I've gone through life pretending that time will change the ending, and by the road we didn't take, the life we didn't
I followed it from half on the internet because my mom didn't write good instructions, but I followed her instructions as well. And we make it like almost, we go to church like every second Sunday now, and we make this for the church together.
pretending that time will change the ending.
27 years we still shake with anger for the hotel. 27 years we still shake with anger for the hotel.
To say again, welcome home. This is, we consider this Manila Town space to be a sacred space.
The International Hotel, located in San Francisco's Manila Town, was a central site for Filipino Americans, especially for first-gen Filipino laborers known as manongs, who sought affordable housing after years of agricultural work.
Our core program is to maintain the legacies of the historic Manila Town neighborhood and the 1977 International Hotel eviction.
In the 1960s and 70s, the I-Hotel became a symbol of the struggle against urban renewal and gentrification, as developers sought to evict the residents and demolish the building for new development.
It definitely rung a couple of bells, or just like affirmed a lot of things in me. This heavily resonates with my vision of activism, especially with Filipino American activism, being, such a large-scale event that affected a lot of factors within everyone in America's housing rights.
I've worked in housing court through Elder Protective Services. I've walked with many people through the road of getting that eviction notice and all the steps it takes to stay in their home or find the next place.
And just being there with all the artifacts, all the paintings, documents, original pieces of that hotel there, just seeing all that come together affirmed my hopes and kind of just made me feel that what I believe in and what those who fought for in the past really do matter, and we see it today.
Those manongs at the I-Hotel came together and did that for 9 years, and also getting to meet one of the original residents of the I-Hotel was really amazing.
And it's a testament to their willpower, their staying power, their pride in who they were, and therefore that's why it's so important for you to make that connection. If you take anything away from here, remember that Manila towns were the very first manongs that came to them. And that's all the way back down to Louisiana in the Bayou country. Take the narrative. We have our narrative. No one else can say it better than us. Know that, okay? Okay. Class dismissed.
The fight for the I-Hotel is remembered as a pivotal moment in Asian American activism and a testament to the resilience and unity of the Filipino American community. Today, the site now hosts a new I-Hotel, providing housing for low-income seniors, as well as a cultural center, continuing the legacy of advocating for social justice and community preservation.
Welcome to San Francisco State.
San Francisco State University is a public university known for its diverse student body and commitment to social justice. SFSU is historically significant for its role in the establishment of ethnic studies as an academic discipline. In 1968, the university became the site of the longest student strike in U.S. history, led by the Third World Liberation Front. The students demanded an end to institutional racism and the creation of a school of ethnic studies. Their efforts resulted in the founding of the College of Ethnic Studies in 1969, the first of its kind in the nation. This groundbreaking development set a precedent for the inclusion of ethnic studies programs in higher education institutions across the country, emphasizing the importance of diverse cultural perspectives and social justice in academia.
A site that really impacted me was the mural at SF State, mainly because it was so bold and it was so beautiful, and it kind of was like a culmination of a bunch of major events in Filipino history. It was really cool seeing all of that and just having all of these pieces together make up. It was also just really cool to see Filipinos, something that's solely Filipino, be
so I guess like celebrated and shown.
United players, oh my god, that's another one that like really stuck with me. We just saw them across the street and they were like, come in. And we spent a good amount of time in there learning about what they have been doing for the youth.
United Players is a San Francisco-based nonprofit organization dedicated to violence prevention and youth development. Founded in 1994 by Rudy Corpuz Jr., the organization focuses on empowering young people, particularly those at risk, through a range of programs and services.
But our program here is committed to the last, the lost, and the least. That's who we with. You understand what I'm saying? So our base thing is from the elementary all the way to the penitentiary. We work with all the guys coming home, the girls coming home. We got lifers here that's females, right? We got guys, the whole.
United Players offers mentorship, academic support, job training, and recreational activities. By addressing issues such as gang violence, substance abuse, and educational disparities, United Players strives to create a safer, more supportive environment for youth to thrive and become positive contributors to their communities. Pinoy Educational Partnerships is an innovative service learning collaborative that aims to support the academic and personal development of Filipino American students. Founded in 2001, PEP partners with local schools, universities, and community organizations to provide culturally relevant curriculum and mentorship programs.
It was so clear that these teachers, who are so similar to me in age and identity and culture, have such bright minds and such strong motivation to teach Filipino history and teach Filipino culture and kind of break down generational trauma. That's something that I haven't seen here.
To hear you all validate us and our history in this room. Has that ever happened to you? Ever? Seriously?
They approached you first. I'm very, 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 very shy, and that was very. Shout out to Faith. She was like the first one to talk to me when we went to that exchange.
And even though I was a stranger to them, they were so vulnerable with how their story came to be, why they're there, what brought them there, what their purpose is in life. And I feel like that was infectious. I felt like that was what Kapo was to me.
Seeing the stark difference between East Coast Filipino Americans versus West Coast Filipino Americans was just like, whoa, this is what it was like when I was back home. They were loud. We're not loud here.
It was so inspirational to me. They're really in it, you know? And it's so clear that they're truly change makers there.
By fostering a deeper understanding of Filipino heritage and addressing the unique challenges faced by Filipino American youth, PEP empowers students to achieve academic success and community engagement. The initiative plays a crucial role in promoting educational equity and nurturing future leaders within the Filipino American community. Skyline College is a community college located in San Bruno, California. Established in 1969, they offer a wide range of associate degree and certificate programs, as well as transfer opportunities to four-year universities. Dr. Rod Dawes Magbuwal invited the group to some lectures covering Filipino-American education.
And so when we talk about food systems and farmers, you see this succession of different ethnic groups that are exploited labor groups that have came in to places like California and the West Coast, the breadbasket of America, that have been coming here to do the work, right? So when we talk about the Chinese that came here, and then they were excluded, and then Japanese came here, they got excluded, Koreans came here, they get excluded, and then we're talking about the Filipinos and how they were a different type of classification as U.S. nationals.
Today our topic title is called Malay Tao. We are raised to live the American dream and to be successful and to live a good life, but why do we have to fulfill the American dream? Why can't we just have our individual dreams? And how do we live a good life if we don't even really know who we are as people? So in today's presentation, we will dive deeper into the impact of colonialism on our psychological well-being and explore how we can use this knowledge along with our personal experiences to develop a stronger connection within our culture. Life without a goal, right? Overcome addictions, codependency, learn creative dreaming and thinking, create new images and self-representations.
A hatred that turned on each other, and we end up being in an all-out war with each other, causing it to become violent, not only against people, but also ourselves.
Other cultures are primitive or barbaric, and so when you have immigrants coming into America, most of the time, as a result of the colonization that happened in their country, they're seen as like a subordinate category of Americans, and therefore, in language and in just this narrative that's been pushed, and this is important if you want to remember this, the Filipino-American identity is in turn seen as a subordinate category of American identity. Like Filipino-American is less than just American, or what they call a true American. It ties into nationalism, but that also is kind of like demonizing the intersectionalism of a lot of people who come from different backgrounds, who have different cultures, whose families have had different experiences of colonialism, and that's also different from, us, like the youth experience of colonialism. But if we just stick to these old ways of thinking, it reinforces the Eurocentric narrative that empowered the Spanish and the West to actually colonize the Philippines in the first place. So what we're trying to do is decolonize our language and decolonize the way we talk about each other.
Buong Loob is the Philippine Student Wellness Internship, an initiative dedicated to mental health awareness in Filipino-American students in high school.
Seeing so many young people be so interested in their culture and engaging with their culture and already knowing so much and having those resources, having people that support them and encourage them, that's such a different experience than what I had growing up in upstate New York. My sister's the same age as them, and so is my younger cousin, and I'm close with both of them. Being inspired by the fact that that is a possibility of something that people on the East Coast could have kind of encourages me to continue doing what I'm doing and to continue engaging in the communities that I'm in right now.
Living in such a close proximity, but I didn't know those existed. Because I could have been a part of that program if I knew about it. I would see myself really differently, especially if I was in that program before the trip.
It starts with imagination and also with just one person believing that it's possible, and so that's how Buong Loob began.
It was really where I got to be a full participant, right? The teaching that was happening there, the learning that was happening there, it's all things that I believe in and things that I value. You saw these this teaching team that was really invested in not just teaching, but in a way that was relevant to these students, right?
I'm really appreciative of all of your guys' presence, all of our supporters, and all of you students. I'm just really I want to touch on like the different generations, and I think you said that this type of learning and this type of healing is very multi-generational, and I'm living that right now. Like I see it within students my age, younger than me, and my elders, and I'm just really grateful that we have spaces like this, and we have people willing and open to learn from us and high schoolers, and I'm just really excited to see where the beginning of this legacy takes.
It was so impactful for me to think about like what I want to continue to do as a teacher. So that was pretty amazing. And then the space they made for the students to really shine and bring their strengths into the spaces was amazing too. You know, like I didn't have my intellectual identity until like maybe towards the end of my undergraduate experience, right? But they were starting to form that at such an early age, and it's because they see themselves as intellectuals, right? And they're learning about their own values in meaningful ways. They're learning about their parents' values in meaningful ways, and it's not just like, oh, am I American or am I Filipino? Like that's not a question that has to come up for them, right? It's all relevant, it's all meaningful, it's all important to them. When Maria was able to recite that passage in Tagalog for us, right? I think that just, you know, I think everybody in that moment was like, oh yeah, like, I want to be Filipino, right? Whether we were or not, right?
But a lot of them, they don't really speak it all like that. So it was dope for them to hear. I saw them looking at you, and I was like, I hope it encourages them. And me and Marla's fluent. I mean Marla, Mishka that came up there with you, they're fluent. So I was just like, wow, I wonder how that's for them, seeing somebody modeling that, yo, it's dope to speaking your language, right?
Because it was so cool to see language impact people in that way, and language be a learning tool and, you know, an opportunity for building bridges and all this other stuff, right?
When the slide showed up for Kapwa and it talked about shared identity within yourself and with your surrounding community, it was kind of like fate, because as trip leader, you know, I knew I wanted certain objectives to come through with the trip, and it was like as if it was just being laid out for me, which was really cool. I thought it was really cool that we learned about Kapwa, because I think it created a bridge for how to take this trip, how to take this focus on Filipino American history and identity and translate it to other communities, to other marginalized populations that are also experiencing the same struggle. How to translate it even to yourself, because some of our participants weren't of Filipino American identity too.
Vice Mayor Rod Daus Magboal invited the group to the town hall for a small meeting with some of the other faculty working there.
Rod.
Daly City Town Hall was actually really, really cool. Specifically because we were seeing a sector of the government really putting action into their words, putting it into praxis. I had some really meaningful conversations with some of the politicians that we met that day. One of them, I was telling him how cool it was to see Daly City really representing the people that live there. And he just straight up was like, well, yes, your government should look like and should support the people that inhabit it. It's so easy to say, but to do it is another thing. So seeing that in Daly City Town Hall was amazing. And also as a woman, seeing a lot of those politicians being female being Filipino and female was really powerful and helped empower me and see what I could be and the space that I could take up and be unforgiving and unapologetic about it.
Nakakailang bote na kaibigan, mabuti na lang ika'y aking natawagan. Palagi na akong lutang, nanonood ng mukbang para lang malibang. Natatawa lang ako sa tuwing nagkakaganto, nawawala ang angas ko. O gabi na naman, ilabas ang
Cry because it's over. Cry because it happened.
O gabi na naman, siya pa rin ang laman ng isipan. O gabi na naman, siya pa rin ang laman ng isipan.
Tatlong bagsak!
Bye, Christian.
When I was thinking about this, I kind of thought of the idea of like having to fight for like your racial identity and realizing that like quantifying culture and quantifying ethnicity is not any sort of justification for alienating or ostracizing people who happen to live in diaspora, because sometimes that's not their decision, and that a lot of people in diaspora suffer feeling like disconnected from their culture and their people because they're not always surrounded by them.
For me, there is no fixed definition. I feel that it continues to be redefined and repurposed because of the way we need to adapt with American culture. And I feel historically, you know, there is a common ground for Filipino Americans, behavior of like resilience and endurance and that strong spirit you need to just simply live in America.
So I think being Filipino American is really being resilient and having to realize that our identity is not something that can be defined in one way or the other, and it's just a matter of how we decide to interact with our culture and practice it and explore it, despite being so far away from where we come from.
I think being Filipino American is being part of a legacy of change makers, of leaders, of disruptors.
Looking for them. Looking for them. I think that's the first thing that happened when I came to school. I didn't have a lot of Filipino. I was the only Filipino at my high school that I knew of. A lot of Asians, but I was only Filipino.
I didn't know about like Filipino culture just because like circumstances growing up. Like that really all stopped when I was like probably like 6-7 years old. I kind of like sit on the side, and people are usually like, oh, Joel's like very quiet, but like sometimes it feels like being around people who have that sort of cultural connection, like family connection. Going on the trip has really helped me learn more about things that like I think my parents did grow up with, but unfortunately weren't and like the place or like the mindset to really pass on to their kids.
Realizing kind of how I see myself. Because like before I didn't really I couldn't really answer that question. I didn't really know how I particularly saw myself, or at least like what I did see was very surface level, but now it's like there's so much more, it's so much deeper than that. I don't think I could ever like fully explain how much the trip like impacted me in terms of my Filipino American identity.
Seeing people be able to thrive on their own terms in spaces that they built for themselves, where perhaps in Boston, a lot of the Filipino people on this trip have never had that or never seen that before, and it really just transformed their energy. People were so relaxed, people felt so at home, you know, and everybody deserves that.
Space that was made by the BBS group, like in the Airbnb. You know, the conversations, the joy, the friendships that are, you know, deepening. Like all those things I think are also making space. We do it for each other, making space because it's who we are as humans, and you know, it reminds us of our humanity. Students went to California to try to find spaces where they belong and they can see themselves, and that's very important, but it was also really important for them to know that they were change agents in themselves, and they were already doing it. The ways that everybody in the group showed up for each other, that was also space making.
Kapwa, to me, it was an unfamiliar term. I've seen it like thrown around in like my family, but now after this trip, Kapwa is seeing others in the way that contributes to our sense of wholeness. I think Kapwa is necessary to cultivate a Filipino community that supports each other and holds each other up. I feel it in our community, but not in the wholeness of like the community of Massachusetts. Like I feel it in UMass Boston, I feel it in Hawaii, but it's not centralized.
It's one of the things that really defines humanity. I think it helps us realize the importance of like uplifting each other, connecting with each other, and learning about each other. You can't really isolate justice. When we want to help ourselves, we have to learn how to help other people at the same time.
Kapwa to me means community in that we're all connected. If I hurt you, I'm hurting myself. If I love you, I love myself.
I think of kapwa, like in Tagalog, it means kapwa tao. So it's like your fellow humans or people. And I think of it in English. And prior to the trip, it's like your own people. They already existed. Versus after the trip, it's not your own people, it's my own people. In the beginning, it was just like, that's your own people. Like it's an automatic thing, versus after the trip, it became more meaningful than something that was just existing before.
Kapwa is kind of in that same kind of way of thinking. Ubuntu is the Zulu word for, you know, I am because you are, right? And, you know, the sincerity and the care and the love that was put into each kind of moment together. I don't know if I've experienced anything like that, you know, and I have a family. So it was felt by even the people who were, that we were going to see in San Francisco, right? I think there was the kapwa that was kind of like fostered even within the group before, made everybody kind of just open their arms to us, right? And there was a lot of things on the trip that happened that weren't planned, and it's because I think everybody kind of felt that energy, right? So like to understand it conceptually is one thing, but to experience it in that really deep way was something I did not expect.
I grew up in a very hyper-independent culture where it was kind of like, you know, at a young age, I went out, I got a job on my own, I got an apartment on my own, and that was just how we did it. I really learned just through the concept of Kapwa here that opening up to community and to others is an act of taking care of myself. And also, as I take care of myself, that's the best thing I can do for those around me.
Funny enough, Kapwa was a word that I actually stumbled upon on Instagram a couple of months ago before the trip. I don't know what it was. I see a lot of hatred and I see a lot of prejudice against a lot of people. Not only in Filipino American culture, but just people in general, humanity in general. I think we could do a lot better with being mindful of each other's situations and being more understanding and just grow to understand each other instead of jumping to aggression or oppressiveness or disdain for each other instantaneously. I think Kapwa was demonstrated a lot during the trip since we encountered so many people. We encountered a lot of people of different backgrounds, of different places, from different areas. It doesn't really matter who you are. We all need to stand up for each other and we all need to help out each other so that we can all grow together, no matter what.
Learning about all the history and impacts of Filipino Americans, even despite being in the state that all this occurred, I think my mindset has really changed.
I think before coming on this trip, my journey of finding my identity as a Filipino American all came from, you know, the articles I read, the books I read, the documentaries and movies that I watched. And this trip really was the culmination of all of that coming together and seeing it in person and seeing it really exist in front of me tangibly for the first time. And it was amazing.
When you go on a trip that's so introspective, you get a deeper sense of what your purpose is in life. That's a lot of identity work to do. I've also gained a deeper sense of gratitude to the people that came before me, to my parents, to my ancestors, to all the Filipino Americans that had to endure those hardships. Carrying on their legacy is what we're doing here, acknowledging what they've gone through and continuing their life work to make Filipino American spaces more inclusive and stronger.
I realized how much bigger this work was. My mindset around this work, this community work within Filipino American community, it became much bigger than just identity seeking. It was able to go from identity seeking to then how can you use your newfound strength in who you are and use it to help others.
When I went to that trip, I guess I just realized that I've taken my culture for granted. Like Filipino history was the majority history book that I know of. Then you guys started asking me questions. I was like, oh my God,
Like, wait,
no way.
not this much.
I was like, ain't no way I forgot about all these things. Because with me, I grew up with it. And I've taken it for granted. But seeing people who are willing to like learn about it more, even though, let's say they didn't have a good experience growing up with the culture. So like even though they probably experienced that after going through all that, just to see them want to and go ahead and like actually initiate the learning process, it's very heartwarming. All hope is not lost, I guess.
I think I'm a lot more open-minded now and a lot more mindful of just people's experiences in general, no matter where you're from.
This trip is really teaching me how to share space in community. I think making space for each other doesn't necessarily mean we all compartmentalize each other, or segregate. I think it means that our hearts are big enough to embrace each other for fully who we are, you know, to embrace somebody else's culture, even though it may be different than mine. So I'll always really treasure everything I learned in San Francisco.
There are some friendships that I've created on the trip that continue to last. Like it can stand like, you know, the test of time. I'm not saying that's way too far, like it's been a long time, but I can tell that these friendships are gonna last for a while. So.
It opens them to the world, being educated in this way. Because you could be educated, but still choose to, I don't know, stay in your own lane.
It is one thing to learn in a classroom, and it's completely different to learn in the community.
You can kind of picture yourself and how you could have been there and what you would have done, maybe what other people would have experienced now that you're in that place.
It was helpful to learn about my history and see kind of how parts of my history relate to how I'm developing as a person.
When I was growing up, I really didn't see myself as an activist. I didn't see myself as someone who really championed my Filipino identity. But you can't be what you can't see.
It opened my mind up to the possibilities of how, possibilities of what it means to be Filipino American, and it broadened the definition for me a lot more. It showed me that there wasn't one way of being Filipino American.
We saw family and the Filipino community come together and grieve, at the same time expressing so much pride, and to see that pride and that identity mixed in with that grief and healing, it's just so holistic and so healthy.
I think because we're so used to learning in like a classroom, we get used to like a routine of just hearing the same voices. I think it was just very transformative, and like the way like our education system has us think, like we learn how to like write a specific way, we learn how to think a specific way, we learn how to solve problems in a specific way, but when we reach out and we sort of expand the way that we think, we learn how to help other people better. And I think it's a better way to learn, because I don't think that we should ever practice one way of thinking or practice one way of doing things.
We've fostered a safe community, like a safe space between all our group members. We really came in not knowing each other, but by the end of the trip, we really did know each other, and we got closer together. So there is a community aspect that I value heavily, and identity work aspect, and those two meshing together is very rare.
The trip like made me just open my perspective up in the matter of like who I am, but also like the community I serve, the people I serve, the people I represent, or the issues we deal with.
Coming back here, it has driven me to be more active in the community and to really take on more of that role.
Ang